and welcome to chapter 8. And in today's chapter, it's very specific. It's all to do with the new feature that just came along with Unreal 5.4 version. And in this case, what we'll be dealing with is called PCG Biome. There's not much information on PCG Biome topic. Just to give you a bit on outline, what we are dealing with is basically a system that helps you to create a very diverse biome using some of the blueprints that are coming with this PCG Biomes plugin. And also the plugin also have very cool PCG graph written to not only create very quick instance of foliages on the surfaces, but at the same time you can just use the data assets to build up the whole library of any foliage that you want to work with or any objects that you want to spawn on the surface. And using this information from the data asset, then you can literally generate your landscape environment. So this is pretty much I can say about PCG Biome. But as I said, it's still experimental, so it's still it requires lots of work, and it'll be super cool to actually learn it. And that's why the chapter is all about learning the PCG Biome. So to start off, what you need is to go and edit, go to plugins, type in PCG Biome, and once you have it, then you go basically tick this box and it will ask you to restart it, and you have to restart a project and you will get this enabled. And what I actually also did, because for this particular exercises, we are going to use one of the projections which comes with that plugin. And this is what we actually going to be needing for this exercise. And I also create a very simple texture that will basically be a very simple input information based on the color of this texture itself. So as you may open it, and you'll see that once there's green, yellow and red and blue and so on. And this is enough to start off to show you the simple exercise, because what we're going to do throughout this exercise, we are going to use this texture information depending which color we're using, and each color will be defined to work with different foliage. So to begin with, let's go and create our components for that. So let me go to PCG, and what we're gonna do is right click and we're gonna create a new blueprint. So we're gonna go to blueprint class here, and what we're gonna do is type in and search for BP_PCG Biome Core. And the one we're gonna look for is this one. So let's add it to our project here. And what we're gonna do, we're gonna call it BP_Biome Core. And so in this case, what we're going to also do, in order to work with our Biome project texture here, we are going to introduce another section, which is called PCG graph instance, because we actually need a PCG graph instance for this particular exercise. Let's call it PCG_texture biome. And then open this up. And because we already have our PCG graph biome, so we're gonna basically use this and drag and drop into this graph here. So that's enough. And now we have a whole access to this whole information that Biome Core project texture provides with, and we can use actually access through this parameters overrides here. So this is the whole part that dictates and works out for us to be able to implement this Biome Core into our scene, and this will be used to for this particular exercise. So what I'm gonna do is to make sure in this case, landscape fits the same dimensions, and the ones I'm particularly looking into is this resolution verts here, because it's 505 by 505, because we're gonna need this to change some of the texture size here too. And to do this, what we need to do is to go and enable that, and then I'm going to then enable also texture that we're gonna need later for this one. But because we're already dealing with 505, so, and currently this is running in 25,600 units by 25,600 units. But because we have to double it, because in this case, the principle of here is to use the same numeration as it is presented here. So the closest one I can think of is double it. It's actually a cool trick, because what you can do is to multiply by 2. So if you do multiply by 2, it will automatically also changes to higher value. So because we have to sort of match the same size resolution as it is on this presented, because the units can be a bit different compared to these ones, but as long as they are over 550,000, then it should be enough to match the same size like this one here. The next bit is to make sure we're going to use the same texture. So I'm going to drag and drop into this, save that. Of course, now what we need to also do is to use landscape as our word origin. So that's quite important. Another factor I need to touch on is the channels to project. So in this case, we need to set up, currently it's only working on X value, so we need to also include the Y and Z value. X, Y, and Y, Z value means it will work on all directions along the entire biome, including the texture information that's provided. It will work in every 3 axes that we are available here. And I think that's pretty much it for now, so we can then save that. So now we can use our PCG Biome, so drag into a space here and drag and drop into our landscape. So with this all set up, what we can do now is to drag and drop our Biome Core like just now. And with this one selected, go to Biome Core. And because the Biome Core, you should have a Biome Core graph inside. If not, then just check and search for Biome Core and you'll find the one here. And then what we'll do is then navigate down and replace this by adding our Biome Texture projection instance. In this case, what we'll do, we're going to use this PCG Texture biome we have created together and plug it right there. And what you want to do next is to then enable to see what's happening to the scene, in other words, to review the progress. So in this case, I'm going to click on this, and then now you see the textures start to visualize in form of these cubes. And those are just the position points of a biome, in this case to indicate what is this, where is going to place each of these static meshes that are going to be spawned the scene. And that's very cool. Now you see it literally works out as we want it. So next bit, what we want to do, and sometimes actually another thing I want to mention, that sometimes you might not see something. So sometimes what is best to do is to go and clean this up and regenerate again, because sometimes there might be certain bugs that sort of disables you from viewing the progress that you made. Let's turn this off. The next step of this exercise is to create some static meshes, spawning static meshes on the scene. So let's start off with trees first. So let's right click and create a tree biome. Add it. And then inside it, let's go and start adding some of the assets that we're going to work with. So in this case, what we're going to do, I'm going to go miscellaneous, and I'm going to add a data asset. And inside data asset, what we're going to particularly look for is the biome asset template. So select that. Next thing I'm going to do is to rename this to DA_biome A trees, because it's the data asset _ biome A trees. Open this up, and let's start adding some values inside it. So if we're going to open this up, so let's add another one index. And then once we set this up, so what we need to do is to create set up as the default generator. And we are going to pick some of these meshes that we have done, prepared for this exercise. So the meshes we're going to use are these particular items that comes within the plugin folder for the PCG framework inside Unreal. And we're going to use some of them. So in this case, I'm going to drag and drop into this mesh field here. And then next thing what we'll do is to make sure an under asset option to set this to self-prune. And the reason for that is so because it doesn't overlap, and it will remove any overlapping asset that comes with it along the pathway where the trees will be generated, and any other, in this case, assets along the way. So then we just compile it, save it. The next thing is we also need to, for the tree biome, also create another data asset. Let's go back to miscellaneous data assets. And in this case, we need to also create definition, because we also have to set the definition for this data asset to work within the blueprint. So in this case, I'm going to call DA_biome D trees. And because we need to make sure that it works with different colors, so in this case we're going to pick up green that works with the same texture that we have prepared here. So you can actually open this up next to it and also use the color picker, choose the same color so it matches the same color right here. And let's call it trees. So let's save that. And then we're going to create a blueprint that will be suitable for the trees. So right click and go to that blueprint, and let's search for BP underscore PCG Biome setup. And that's the one we're gonna use for PCG Biome setup. Go BP, let's go trees biome. So then double click. And with all that what we have just created, just open this up a bit more so you can see that. And then we can actually do is to set this all up. So we have the trees there. Also going to add another asset that we've created previously. And this will be our A trees. So we can then compile it. And now what we're going to do, we can then drag and drop into the space here and watch what's happening. So if you go back again to visualize it, debug that. And of course we need to clean this, regenerate. So now you see the trees only will appear with a green color space, just like we wanted to, meant to happen. So so that's a cool exercise to start working with that. And let's repeat the same process with the other assets. So let's go back and let's go and call this case would be a bush biome. So I'm gonna basically create a new folder. Open this up and let's repeat the same process just like we did before. Hit the asset and then DA underscore Biome A bushes. And let's open this up. Let's add an array here, index. I use the default generator, and of course, let's use the meshes that we prepared. So here's the bush. Save that, and also make sure we change the self prune. It doesn't overlap. Save that, and let's go create a new ones. Let's go to our bush biome, right click, data asset, biome definition template, biome D bushes. Let's open this up. Let's call it bush. And that's what we had before on that texture here. Let's just pick it. In this case, we're going to use the red color. And then so I can save that. Let's go create another biome setup. So let's go back to our blueprint class, call it BP underscore PCG Biome setup. And in this case, I'm going to call it BP underscore bush biome. Let's open this up and set this all up just like we wanted to in the beginning. So we have the bushes that we need to set it all up, and let's add an array to set up the bushes that we've prepared. Then we can go and compile it, save it. And we can just drag and drop into the space. So in order for us to review it once more, we need to go back, clean this up, regenerate. And there we go. So now what we can do is then disable our debug that we have been enabled, and then you can just turn that off, and there you go. So this was a very cool exercise to work with the experimental feature of the PCG biome. And if you want to do more changes, of course you can use the textures biome that's presented here and create more data assets that comes with that. For any other foliage that you want to maybe implement it based on this texture information, or you can also add your own texture and do the same thing what we've just done in this tutorial. But as you may closely look into this, you can also decide to change the not just the size but also other features that comes with the data asset. So for example, if you want to go maybe change some information for the bushes, then you can also, I suppose, do some changes there and then do whatever you would like to do in order for you to maybe diversify a little bit. And at the same time, maybe you wanted to play around with some settings that not only to work for your preference, but at the same time just to have a bit of fun with the data assets that comes with that. So that was it, and I hope you had a good time to how you managed to learn from it, to see if you find it very interesting, and if you want to pursue, which I believe PCG Biomes will be pretty much more explored in the coming versions of Unreal. And I definitely highly encourage to stick with us in the coming new versions of Unreal. And it is definitely a good niche to step in and start learning it, because the PCG framework will be definitely more advanced by the time the PCG Biome will be fully non-experimental. In other words, will be fully utilized. So I hope you had a great time learning it. And the next chapter, which will be a chapter 9, it will be more fun because we are going to introduce character animations, including a very simple AI, where in this case characters will be roaming around, and we're gonna use PCG to populate those characters on the scene. So there'll be another cool exercise to look into it, and I'm really looking forward to teach you guys in the next chapter. So thank you so much, and see you in the next part.